All right. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. My name is Otis Landerholm, and I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. And so welcome to another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. I'm recording this today on the 27th of May of 2025, and thank you all so much for joining me. Today we're talking about Project Homecoming, and this is an initiative from the Trump administration, and I want you to understand what you need to know about Project Homecoming, all right? What it is, what it's not, and how you can be aware of it, okay? So welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. Remember, the Empowered Immigrant Live is here to train, teach, inspire, and empower immigrants to make the most out of immigration laws and to make the most out of their lives, okay? Today, our theme is Trump's Project Homecoming and what it is and what you need to know about it, okay? And so do you want to get a green card? Do you want to apply for VAWA? Do you want to apply for asylum or a U visa? Or do you want to change your life through an immigration process of some kind? Do you want to at least know what your options are or what the best strategy is for you? Because if so, go for it. It all starts with a consultation, and we can figure out what's the best method, what's the best option to help you navigate the confusing and complex laws that are the U.S. immigration legal system, okay? And my firm would love to help you with that. We are on a mission to win 10,000 cases by 2035, so 10,000 cases in the next 10 years, and we would love for your case to be one of them, all right? Thanks to everyone who is tuning in right now. As I talk about this theme, you know, if you have questions, please feel free to ask your questions. Whether about the theme or not, if it's about your immigration case, I'm more than happy to do my best to help you answer and get clarity about how immigration laws work and how we could help you navigate them. So the news, it's May of 2025. Trump has been back in power for over 100 days, now a little bit more than that. And a lot has changed, right? The Lake and Riley Act was signed into law. ICE is getting going with its mass deportation efforts. The Senate and House have approved Trump's budget to increase deportations, etc. The new registration requirement was announced and is in effect. They've talked about a new travel ban. They haven't yet implemented that new travel ban, but they've talked about it. They've canceled all of the humanitarian parole programs for Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. They've canceled TPS for 350,000 people. They've deported people under the quote-unquote Alien Enemies Act without any due process whatsoever. And they've created and announced this new Project Homecoming, which is our topic of discussion for today. And so let's get into that, and we'll talk about it, okay? So this, I'm holding up for the video the announcement from the White House, all right? And it was signed on May 9th, all right? So a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago. And it says, Presidential Action Establishing Project Homecoming. And it reads, over the last 4 years, the United States has endured a full-scale invasion of aliens entering and remaining in the country illegally, causing a relentless onslaught of crime, vagrancy, violence, and death in countless American communities. All right? This lawless invasion has also limited the capacity of American schools and hospitals to provide for American citizens and has diverted billions of dollars in federal, state, and local social services from Americans in need. You know, it goes on, you know, it's a four-page document. It's available online. It talks about, first of all, what can I say about the language in it? I disagree with it. All right. I don't think there's been a full-scale invasion of aliens into the United States. I think that's Republican rhetoric that is damaging and undermines what actually has happened. Someone coming in and pleading asylum using the law to do that. Someone using a legal process that was in place, right, to enter the country on an application that a former president made as a pathway for people to be paroled in and put into deportation proceedings, which all those people were, right? That's not a quote unquote invasion. That's people following a legal process to try and immigrate lawfully. Okay, and that's actually what happened, Donald Trump. That's actually what happened. And you got to understand that, and your language doesn't help anything, right? You're just trying to confuse people into buying your own viewpoint. I'm not buying it, okay? So part of what you're creating here, though, is, and kind of continuing on this, you create a free return home and a CBP home application. So you have changed the CBP-1 application, which was used for people to be paroled into the United States, and instead you're creating a CBP home application. So part of this Project Homecoming, it's creating a mechanism for people to deport themselves voluntarily. Okay? And what it is, it's creating a seamless process for illegal aliens to rapidly depart the United States, including using the CBP home application, in creating free flights for people who are departing the U.S., creating an exit bonus, all right, so $1,000 financial incentive for people who are leaving the U.S., all right, and they're Trump is asking the Secretary of State and the heads of other agencies to communicate and to create communication campaigns throughout the country to, quote unquote, notify illegal aliens of the availability of cost-free travel to other countries to leave, the exit bonus, and the, quote unquote, sweeping consequences for those who choose to remain illegally present, all right, which include removal, prosecution, incarceration, fines as consistent with applicable law, garnishment of wages, confiscation of savings and other personal property, including homes and vehicles. That's what it says, all right? And so, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, this is crazy, right? Who's ever going to actually voluntarily depart under this? And then I see the news, right? I see that DHS announces, right? They say Project Homecoming charter flight brings self-deporters to Honduras and Colombia. This came out last week, all right? It says today, Department of Homeland Security conducted voluntary charter flights from Houston, Texas to Honduras and Colombia, bringing 64 participants who opted to self-deport back to their home countries. All right? This charter flight is one of the first actions the department has taken to fulfill President Trump's most recent proclamation to create Project Homecoming. All right? It was a voluntary flight. They received $1,000 stipend, preserved the possibility they could one day return to the U.S. Legally, which we got to clarify that, folks. And so, but this happened, all right? This happened, and you got to understand it. So that's what's been announced, and that's the news. And now what I want to share is like the legal ramifications that people actually have by doing this, all right? So if you're even considering doing that, I want you to understand the consequences. it might be really unwise for your situation to do that, to do this. Okay? You got to remember that legally, when a person departs the United States, if a person has more than 365 days of unlawful presence, which you can do the math. You could do the math with an immigration attorney. You could have a consultation and figure out, right, whether or not you have more than 365 days of unlawful presence. If you do, and if you depart the U.S., you trigger inadmissibility for how many? 10, folks. You trigger inadmissibility, legal bars on re-entry for 10 years. There are some bars that are permanent. So sometimes it's even longer than 10 years. All right? Leaving through Project Homecoming does not change this. Right? You got to understand that. And so if you're even considering leaving the U.S., right, talk to a lawyer first. Talk with a lawyer before you decide whether or not you, like, does this have any value for you, right? And you want to know your rights. You want to know what options you're giving up by leaving. Because the Trump administration, they're painting the picture one way. They're not sharing all the consequences of leaving. They're sharing all the consequences of staying. But they are not sharing the rights and options and opportunities that a person gives up and relinquishes upon leaving the United States as written into the law. This is IRA, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act that was passed under Bill Clinton in 1996. All right? That creates all of the bars that affect people when they leave the U.S. All right? And so you got to know that, and you got to understand that, and please seek advice from a lawyer who knows this stuff about your options, about your rights, about the consequences of your decisions before ever deciding to leave the U.S. Okay? Anyway, that's what I wanted to share today. I hope that's useful. I hope that's helpful. The best advice is, if you're an immigrant and if you're looking for how to navigate this, get a lawyer who's good and who understands this stuff and who can help you navigate it. All right? And that's my best advice today. So anyway, if you're just tuning in, hey, my name's Otis Landerholm. Welcome. Welcome to the Empowered Immigrant Live. I am an immigration lawyer. I'm a certified specialist in immigration law. We fight for the rights of immigrants. We do it from our office in Oakland, California, and we take cases and fight cases throughout the United States and the world. All right? So thank you for being here. Welcome. And that's all that I have. Let me answer your questions. All right? So if you have questions, please feel free to submit them. I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you all so much. All right? So let's see. I see a question here. If you've been granted asylum under DACA, is it safe to travel nowadays? If you've gotten asylum under DACA, that doesn't make sense. All right. Thank you for asking that question. You can get asylum and you can get DACA and you can get both, but you can't get asylum under DACA. You know what I mean? Asylum and DACA are two very different programs and very different legal issues. It's possible to have both of those things, right? Or to have had both of those things. You want a DACA first and then want an asylum case. But my best advice in your situation is if you're planning on traveling, if you have DACA, you need advanced parole before you travel. If you have asylum, then you can apply for a refugee travel document or you can apply for your green card, right? And travel through asylum. But the best advice for asylum seekers is do not travel back to your home country, right? Especially in this environment, it's very unwise to do that. Remember, when you win asylum, you're saying that your life is in danger in your home country. And so then if you travel back to your home country, it's kind of a red flag, right? Like, did you really need asylum to begin with? And so the best advice, if you win asylum, is do not travel back to your home country. Okay? AA234567. I see your question here. You say, what to expect when you're coming back as a green card after 11 months out? Man, you know, the best advice is to not leave for so long. All right? The best advice when you have a green card is to never leave the U.S. for more than 180 days. Because after 180 days, re-entry into the U.S., you have to be, quote unquote, readmitted under the law, which means they're going to do a full analysis. You know, so if you're coming back after 11 months out, you're over 180 days out at that point. So what you can expect is that you'll be put into secondary inspection, and they're going to ask you all kinds of questions. How did you win your green card to begin with? Why were you out for so long? Are you maintaining your residence in the U.S.? Prove it. All right? Like, where's your address? And you know, where's your, you know, are you maintaining a bank account here? Are you paying taxes here? Like, they can ask all of those questions. I'm glad that you're coming in before a year is done. All right, so definitely do come back, and come back as quickly as you're able to. All right, but that is what you need to expect. Like, they can ask all of those questions and determine whether or not to, quote unquote, readmit you. And of course, if they decide that you're inadmissible for some reason, they could confiscate your green card, parole you into the country, and give you a notice to appear in immigration court, you know, which I hope does not happen in your situation, all right? But it does happen sometimes, you know, and if you're in that situation, then time to go to court, time to get a lawyer, you know, feel free to call our office. We fight those cases, all right? So Lerma 1128, I see your question here. Is it safe to travel as a permanent resident? So generally speaking, yes. All right, generally speaking, yes. We have lots of permanent resident clients who are traveling even outside the U.S. right now with no issue, okay? And you want to be cautious, just like anybody traveling right now. You know, if you have evidence of political protests against the government, things of that nature, you might want to consider deleting that evidence off of your phone. If you have any if you have any criminal conviction, get legal advice before traveling. If there's any evidence of use of any controlled substances, of course, really get good advice before traveling. That can cause a big issue. But if you have a clean record and a clean, social media profile, and you're traveling for less than 180 days with a green card, have a safe trip, be well, you'll be fine. All right, don't get arrested while you're outside the U.S., obey all laws, etc., and you'll be fine. Okay? Pure Therapy Oils from doTERRA. All right, thank you for being here. You say, hello, sir, I'm on a T visa process. I got that. You're not alone. Thank you for being here. T visas are they are tricky. They are for people who are the victims of human trafficking, and they're not easy to win. And if you need any help at all as you're going through your process, please feel free to reach out. Okay? I wish you the best of luck. All right, Kenny V5. Can I travel abroad with a conditional green card? You know, yes, you have the same rights. A conditional green card holder has the exact same rights, and you're in the same legal standing as a lawful permanent resident is. All right, you're just a quote-unquote conditional permanent resident until the 2 years of your conditional green card expires. All right, and before the conditions expire, you need to file a separate process. We call it the form I-751, and you just want to make sure that you calendar that. It's 90 days before your green card expires. You've got to submit the I-751, and that is the way to request the removal of the conditions from your green card so that you have a full permanent green card. Okay? And that's what you got to know. All right? Let's see. I see the question here. Can I ever apply for citizenship after a 4th DUI? All right, thank you for asking this question. You're a green card holder, but the green card has expired. So is it possible? Yes, it's possible. And thank you for asking this question. You are not alone. Okay, you're not alone. And you want to be, so first of all, the government is going to believe that you have a serious problem with alcohol. Okay, I'm just saying it like it is. A government officer who's reviewing your case and sees 4 arrests or even 4 convictions for a DUI, the government officer is going to be like, okay, this guy is an alcoholic. Okay, and so, they're gonna ask all kinds of questions about that. And what you're gonna want to do when you prepare this type of case is you're gonna want to say, no, officer, I used to be. All right, I used to have problems with alcohol, and here's why. And now this is what I've done to change my life and turn my life around. And I've been sober for X number of years, or I've taken responsibility, or these classes, or whatever. It's like you want to, yes, it is possible to win citizenship, even with that number of DUIs in your record. Yes, it is possible. It's also possible to renew your green card, but you got to understand what you're going to be up against. Okay, and my best advice is don't do that type of case on your own. Have a lawyer help you. Okay, but yes, it is possible. But you might want to wait until at least 5 years have passed, okay, where you've had a quote-unquote impeccable record, a clean, squeaky clean record for the last 5 years, because normally the law says that to win citizenship, you have to show quote-unquote good moral character for the last 5 years. Okay, anyway, I hope that's helpful. Karen, I see your question here. Would you start an adjustment of status from 30 years old, from a 30 years old D1 after a 245I with kids over 21? Would you start an adjustment of status from a 30 years old D1? What do you mean by a D1? Is that the type of visa that you had? It's interesting. This is an interesting question. Would you start an adjustment of status? Look, if you have a child who's over 21, and if you're protected by 245I, then, and if you're otherwise eligible, meaning that you don't have criminal convictions that make you inadmissible, meaning you don't have immigration fraud in your record, meaning you've never falsely claimed that you were a U.S. citizen before, you've never unlawfully voted in any election, you've never helped any other immigrant enter the U.S. unlawfully. You want to go through all of the inadmissibility questions. As long as you're quote-unquote admissible, and you have a child who's now 21, and you're protected by 245I, I mean, here's the thing. If you're eligible for a green card, apply for a green card, right? If the question is, would you start an adjustment of status for a person who's eligible for adjustment of status, even though you haven't been for the last 30 years? The answer is yes. I love cases like this. Yes, absolutely, go for it. So much, win your green card, right? People that are eligible to adjust status. What's the line from that movie Good Will Hunting? You know what I'm talking about? All right? The line is, you're sitting on a winning lottery ticket, but you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable to turn the lottery ticket in. All right? If you're sitting on a winning, if you're eligible for a green card, you got to understand, right? There are thousands of people that call my office, right? Asking, how can I get a green card? And it's not easy. There's 11 million people in the United States that want to be able to, that are wishing they could be eligible for a green card. All right, it is not easy. And Karen, it sounds like you're eligible for one. And so the question is, should you apply or not? Like, yes, you should apply, but before doing it, just make sure you really are eligible. All right, talk it through with a lawyer, get good advice about your situation, and if you are eligible, which it seems to me like you are, absolutely go for it. Okay? I hope that's useful. I hope it's helpful. Okay? Micah Gomez, I see your question here. How long is it taking for advanced parole through a T visa to be approved? So are you saying that your T visa was already approved and you're just waiting for the advanced parole? That's an interesting situation. Normally, as long as you're eligible for advanced parole, normally I say 5 to 7 months. All right, 5 to 7 months. And yeah, so that's my answer. And the other way to get travel rights through a T visa approval is apply for your green card. Okay, so the green card is better than advanced parole in many ways, so you might consider that. All right, Miss Katie, I see your question here. Can I fly state to state with a real ID, but with a star on the right side corner? So the star in the right side corner is good, right? That is the real ID indication. All right? And so can you fly state to state? I mean, yeah. You can use that ID at least to fly state to state. And then, I haven't seen your ID, but it sounds like it's the correct form of ID. You might just Google it, real ID in your state, right? Real ID California. And you can see it's like the little bear with the star on it. So depending on which state you're in, you might Google the image of what a real ID compliant driver's license looks like in your state, just to make sure that what you're holding is the right document. But otherwise, that document can be used to board a plane. It's not necessarily an indication that you have valid immigration status, although typically it is. All right, and that's beyond the scope of what I can answer right here, right now. But if you want additional information about it, then feel free to reach out. Right? Let's see, Omo, I see your question here. If you are in deportation proceedings, can you submit an I-130 and an I-485 application together or separately? This is a great question. Omo, and thank you for being here, and thank you for asking it, and I love your name, and I appreciate your asking this. You are not alone in asking this question. So here's the way it works, all right? When a person's in deportation proceedings in immigration court, the regulations say that the I-130, so for example, you're married to a U.S. citizen, the I-130 cannot be done in court. The I-130 is done in front of USCIS. But when a person is in immigration proceedings in immigration court, the I-485 can't be done in front of USCIS, with one exception, which I'll get to. And instead, it has to be done in front of the judge. All right? The one exception, Omo, is if you are charged as a quote-unquote arriving alien. So if you are caught by immigration as you were arriving, and there's a little bit more to the analysis than this, but if you were put into immigration proceedings as you were arriving into the U.S. and you're still an applicant for admission, in that instance alone, USCIS has jurisdiction over your I-485 too. But otherwise, you must do them separately. File the I-130 to USCIS, wait for it to get approved, and then file the I-485 in front of your immigration judge and fight that case in court. Or sometimes, depending on the court, depending on the judge, once the I-130 is approved, you can file what's called a motion to terminate the court case and then file the I-485 in front of USCIS. Okay? Hope that's useful. Hope that's helpful. If you have additional questions about that, feel free to call my office. We've done cases like that. I've won cases in that context. We have, I think, 3 cases right now in that context. And so we'd be happy to help you. Okay. Crazy Carlos 7, I see your image there. Thank you. Thank you for that. And number 19, I see your question here. Do you know of anyone who ever got approved for DACA having a felony for damaged property? Problem. The DACA regulations say that you cannot win DACA if you ever have a felony conviction. All right? It's a felony, it's 3 or more misdemeanors, or it's a quote-unquote significant misdemeanor. Any of those things make you ineligible for DACA. So if anybody has ever won DACA in that context, I've never seen a case like that, but if anyone has won DACA in that context, it was granted in error. And so you want to be cautious of that. Like your renewal would be denied, your EAD, your work permit would be denied. They will not win. All right, the government will have to deny it per the regulations. If they approved it for anybody in that situation, they will discover that they issued DACA in error. Okay. All right, let's see. If they ever reopen DACA, I would love to apply because I've been here since I was 5. 19, thank you for asking that, and I'm 30 years old now. Yeah, I thank you for saying that. Thank you for asking that. You are not alone. I really wish that, it's a question of DACA or the DREAM Act, right? If they would pass if Congress got their act together and actually passed an immigration law that would actually help resolve the immigration challenges that our country is facing, such as the DREAM Act, right? That would be wonderful. In this environment, I'm very skeptical that would happen. Okay. Let's see. So AA23. Oh, I answered that question already. Yeah, come back into the U.S. with your green card as soon as possible. All right. You're staying outside the country too long. The best advice if you have a green card is never leave the U.S. for more than 180 days. All right. Win your citizenship first. Once you're a U.S. citizen, then you can leave as forever, all right, and you can still come back. But with a green card, you're restricted. Your rights are less, okay? And so, the best advice for green card holders is never leave for more than 180 days. All right. Let's see. TikToker, I see you here. Thank you. Is it safe to travel outside the USA as a green card holder? Yes, for the most part. It is, right? I answered that question above also. As long as you don't have bad stuff in your social media profile, as long as you don't have any serious arrests, if you have any criminal record, talk to a lawyer first. All right, talk to a lawyer first. And the best advice is to never leave with a green card for more than 180 days. All right, banned by TikTok. I see your name here. Thank you for being here. Is there a way to compel my father to give me a copy of his birth certificate so I can claim my Dutch nationality? Wow. The answer to your question is I have no idea. I have no idea. Not that I'm aware of. All right. Not that I'm aware of. You'd have to. Could you sue your father legally in court or something like that? Don't do that. My best advice is anyway, you don't want to hear my best advice. My best advice is tell your father you love him. All right? Make amends. Whatever's there that's a divide or a disconnect between you and your dad. I had an issue with my father. All right? I'll just share this. I had an issue with my father and 10 years ago or something, I just said, something? Life is short. And I told him that I loved him. And I do love him, right? He messed up at various times in his life, but he's an amazing guy, and he was an amazing father for me, and I wouldn't be here without him, right? And so I told him that I loved him. And he broke down, and he started to cry, right? And I'll never forget that conversation. And, this last summer, he passed away, all right? And 10 years ago, I told him that I loved him, and we had that conversation, and I forgave him for all of the stuff. And, life is short, right? And people don't live forever. And it's like, Father's Day is around the corner, and we just had Mother's Day, and it's like, yeah, people, anyway. It's like make amends for difficult things that have happened in the past, right? So anyway, thank you for saying everything that you said. Banned by TikTok. I see your question here. I wish you the best with your question. I don't think there's a way to compel your father to do anything, and your father doesn't want to be compelled, forced to doing something. But anyway, I know family dynamics can be difficult, and I wish you the best of luck with it. All right? Tanya Montes, you say, hi, my boyfriend was detained by immigration. Yeah, I'm sorry. He has a domestic violence case open. Is there a possible bond? If it's not a conviction, then it shouldn't make him completely ineligible unless, okay. My best advice, Tanya, and I'm really sorry for all kinds of things that you're raising here. All right. I don't know if the domestic violence was against you, but if it was, that's a delicate situation and a very challenging situation that you might find yourself in, and he might be eligible to argue bond, but there's a lot into that analysis, right? We would need to understand his immigration history, and we would need to understand what immigration status he currently has, or what immigration status he might be eligible for, and you would need to be prepared for the possibility that they might deny bond based on what happened, and he might need to just fight his case in detention. And then if he wins, he can be released, right? And so sometimes that's the situation. All right. So let's see here. Okay. Karen, I see your point here. You're afraid of the alternative results for 30 years. Okay. Really, my best advice, Karen, in your situation, you have only one shot. I can only pull the trigger once. I see your question there. Maybe that's true and maybe it's not. All right? Like if you think about it, you're applying for adjustment of status through 245I. If they deny you, what happens? Right? If they deny you, they send you a notice to appear, and then you can fight that same case in court. Okay? You can fight an adjustment of status case in front of an immigration judge. That gives you effectively two shots, one in front of USCIS and one in front of the immigration judge. And if the immigration judge denies you, what happens? Well, you have the right to appeal. All right? That appeal, it's difficult to win an appeal. All right? But that appeal effectively gives you potentially a third shot. And so what I'm saying is, yes, you want to maximize your chances of success from the beginning. Hire a lawyer who knows what they're doing and who's good and who's won cases that are in your situation. And it's like, maximize your chances of success and then go for it. Right? Sitting on a winning lottery ticket and you're just like hesitating to turn it in. No, you don't do that, right? If you've got the ability to apply for a green card, do it. That's my thought process. That's my philosophy, right? That's my philosophy. All right, Doña Mitotera, thank you for saying this. If I can successfully claim a Quilantan entry, does it matter that I have one previous unlawful entry? It certainly can matter. It certainly can matter. Okay, you want to talk a question like that. So pop quiz, everybody. What is a Quilantan entry? Who knows? All right, I'll answer that question. So when a person presents themselves at the border, maybe they're driving a car, maybe they're walking through the line, and the government waves them in. All right, we call it a wave-through case. All right, the government officer says, hey, okay, wave through, next, and they don't even check your documents. This happens sometimes, all right? As long as there was quote-unquote procedural regularity, it can constitute a quote-unquote admission by the government because a person showed up there and they were waved in. And so that was decided in matter of Kilantan, which was a case that made its way up to the Board of Immigration Appeals. And so, anyway, the answer to your question, Doña Mitotera, is that the previous unlawful entry can cause a problem. Okay, it depends on when it was. It depends on lots of different factors. And you should talk through your situation carefully with an immigration lawyer because your case will have some risk. All right, it might still be possible. Double check all the dates, double check the law involved. All right, but you might have some risk. Okay, I have time for 3 more questions. So I got to watch the clock here. Okay, Aojalisa. Lisa, okay, can you talk about your own experiences inside of USCIS? Are they aggressive with your clients? You know, that's a good question. That's a good question. Thank you. You know, my office is in USCIS very frequently. All right? We have had some officers who are aggressive with our clients over the years, and we have some immigration officers who are lovely, who are wonderful. Okay, and part of that is the San Francisco field office in general is a pretty great field office within the government. Every immigration officer is different. You want to prepare for it, right? The best advice is to prepare and prepare and prepare as if you're going to have the most horrible officer in the world, all right? Because if you prepare in that context, then no matter who takes your case, you'll be ready, okay? And so you want to understand every single question that they might ask you. You want to understand every single legal issue. You want to go through all of the forms and the paperwork and make sure that you understand the law involved, understand the forms that are already on the table that the government is already reviewing about your case and your situation. If there's any mistakes, you want to be ready to amend, right? If there's any updates, if you've moved or something like that, you want to be ready to update the records, and then just be ready to do your best. Okay. The key with aggressive immigration officers is to be ultra prepared, and if they're really aggressive, your attorney who's there with you can object. Right? They can ask for a supervisor to come in. I've had to do that a couple times. All right, and you know, sometimes that's the right way to do it. Okay. All right. Let's see, Tanya. Okay, I already answered that question. Okay, I answered that question. Let's see. I think. Okay, banned by TikTok. Or number 2, you say no help for U.S. citizens who want to leave. Thank you for asking that question. You know, there are a lot of U.S. citizens that are like, I'm out of here, right? I'm moving to Canada. I'm moving to Europe. I'm moving to Mexico. And, at least for the next 4 years, you know, I know people, right, who are in that situation. And so, anyway, thank you for saying this. Project Homecoming does not have any help for U.S. citizens who want to leave, all right? My last question of the day, Mike BRO, you say, hello, sir, quick question. When USCIS takes a long time to make a decision on my response to annoyed due to a previous sham marriage, does it mean it will likely be denied? Thanks. So, you know, that's impossible to predict, all right? If your response to your notice of intent to deny was very strong, it might just take them a while to review everything, right? It's also happening that, you know, there are officers who are losing their jobs within the government. There are officers who are quitting who are within the government. So it's also possible that your case will be transferred to a different immigration officer, which causes delays too, right? So maybe the delays has nothing to do with the strengths or weaknesses of the case at all. It might just be something happening behind the scenes, all right? But anyway, I wanted to share that. Okay. So everyone, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate each of you. My name is Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding immigration attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C., where we fight for your American dream. And yeah, it's coming up at the end of the hour. I do want to do this same episode in Spanish in just a few moments. So if you speak Spanish, feel free to join us there. And yeah, I really appreciate each of you so much. If this was useful, if this was helpful, please take a moment and subscribe to our channel in YouTube. That's the best way to follow our channel. And whenever we have additional videos with updates and news and things of that nature, we always upload them to our channel in YouTube. And so when you subscribe to our channel, feel free to hit the notification bell. You can be notified whenever we upload any additional news or update or video to our channel so that you can stay in the loop and stay in communication, okay? And if you're on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn and you're here right now, thank you all so much for being here. Give me a heart, give me a wave, give me some love and support on whatever channel you're watching from. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for tuning in right now, all right? My name's Otis Landerholm, Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C., where we fight for your American dream, and we'll see you next time on our next episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Thanks a lot, everybody. Make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.